pleased to welcome the Director General of Financial Services at the Treasury, Gwyneth Nurse, to tell us about her role supporting the government's objective to promote stability, fairness, efficiency and competitiveness in financial markets. So please welcome Gwyneth. Gwyneth, welcome. Really delighted that you're here today. Thank you for making the time. I'm just going to get right in because we don't really have long. We've got about 10 minutes. So I'd really like to get your thoughts on the fact that we're in a risk environment which has deteriorated. Uncertainty has intensified, and that uncertainty and the lack of international cooperation that we're seeing at the moment is quite worrying generally for the British economy. What does that mean for the stability of the financial services sector, and how will the fintech sector in particular be impacted by everything that's going on?
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here today. I was just saying before that I think there have been, this is the 11th FinTech Week. I have managed to attend 10, so sadly I missed last year, so I am delighted to be back, and it's great to see so many people here today. So look, as you say, these are increasingly uncertain times, but as well as uncertainty, there is also opportunity, and I am optimistic about the opportunities that lie in front of us. So I was with the Chancellor last week in Washington at the IMF spring meetings, and you will have seen that she was setting out the UK's strengths as an open, competitive trading nation with strong international relationships, and crucially, as a place that can provide certainty to businesses in an uncertain world. So we think there is, this is a moment in time where there's an opportunity for the UK to attract business and investment and provide an even better environment for fintechs and other financial services. And actually, while we were over in Washington, we had a roundtable with a number of fintech firms representing firms from the crypto world, stable coins, tokenization. It was a vibrant meeting, and lots of interest expressed in the UK and what we're about at the moment. So I came away with a good degree of optimism from that. Very briefly, also on the trade front, we are busy working on free trade agreements with various places in the world, and in those agreements we're placing a huge importance on data, and I know that's a really big deal for the fintech sector. Making sure that there are not requirements to localize financial data, which we know can add significant costs and can be a barrier to doing business. So that's one very specific area on which we are directly focused.
And you know what, a lot of people today have said there are lots of opportunities, especially for the UK right now. Could you be specific on what you think those opportunities are, and how was the pitch when you were there in Washington for, come to the UK? How was that received?
So, well, look, it was, we've traditionally had a lot of business flowing across the Atlantic. It was very well received. As everybody in the room knows, we were an early mover on fintech, creating the conditions for businesses to flourish, and we have had, a huge boom in terms of businesses setting up here. So we've been very good at startup, at setup. Now we're kind of looking for more opportunities for businesses to really scale here. And as you know, the government is doing a lot of work on the capital markets and just trying to make sure that really that the conditions that we have in the UK are the most conducive to want to attract businesses to come here, to invest, to grow here, and to be part of the UK economy.
And I know that Rachel Reeves was meeting with her counterpart in Washington last week and hoping to get some kind of trade breakthrough. Were you sitting in on any of those meetings?
So I was not. I was busy attending the Financial Stability Board, which was why I was in Washington, and taking a number of meetings with colleagues from the US Treasury, with the regulators, with businesses. So I'm afraid I can't provide any insights into the trade negotiations themselves.
Okay, but it looks like any kind of deal is going to take some time. So how do you think you can make sure that fintech features under the government's international trade policy and position it to take advantage of any of these opportunities that we're talking about?
Sure. So look, financial services is a really important part of our economy, so it always represents an important part of any talks. And within that, fintech is a growth sector, it's a growth opportunity, it represents one of the parts of our financial services competitiveness and growth strategy, which will be published later this year. So we have got lots of ideas that have come in from the sector through our call for evidence on that strategy, for things that we can do to encourage innovation. Regulation is obviously a really important part of that, and I heard a little bit of the panel that was just discussing regulation, and everybody will know we've been going at that quickly under the new government. The Chancellor set out her vision in her very early Mansion House speech, and we have been doing a number of things since then, which you may or may not ask me about, I'm not sure, so
I don't know if we'll have time. Do we have a date for that competitiveness strategy to be published?
So you don't have a date yet, but I suspect you don't have to wait that much longer to get such a date.
Okay, all right. You were talking about being over there in Washington and, enticing them back to the UK. And we always hear that, and it is true, we're a great country for inventiveness, for creativity, to start up companies, but scaling up is where we have the issues. And actually, just on one of the panels this morning, Philip Bellarmine, the CEO of Zilch, was talking about some of those issues specifically, like, obviously the amount of pension funding, which is like dreary 1%, the speed of regulation. And then a really interesting point he made is that when companies do well here and they exit, actually instead of keeping that cash in the UK, they cash out and they get on a flight out of here. None of that money stays in the UK, which is a huge issue. How would you resolve for some of those scale-up issues to ensure that we're moving, in the right direction? Because it's a consistent problem. It always comes up.
Look, it certainly does, and I have talked to Philip about this myself as well. So, look, I think some of it is about getting the right regulatory system here in the UK. I mean, we do have a great regulatory system. People are often complimentary about it, about both the PRA and the FCA, but, we need to do more. And I think speed, and I know that's come up a lot today as well, I think that's one of the really important things that we need to work on in order to get some competitive advantage. So, look, the Chancellor is very alive to this. She published the Regulation Action Plan in mid-March, and that set out a clear intention to reduce the burden of regulation. And we also announced that we'd cut regulatory cost to business by 25% by the end of this Parliament. And I'm sure that was a welcome announcement to everybody in the room. We have been busy streamlining the landscape. We have taken the payment systems regulator and said we will fold that into the FCA, which gives you one less regulator to deal with. We're looking to establish a concierge service to make it easier for firms to navigate the UK regulatory landscape and actually arrive here. We are working with the regulators on key performance indicators to ensure that they're as ambitious as possible and that they provide faster, more proportionate authorisations. I think if we can get those things, if we can get that speed going through the system, that should really help us. And then we need to get the funding flowing through the system as well, and that's where the pension reforms really come in. And there will be legislation on these reforms that will be coming, in the very near term. And I think that is going to seriously move the dial in terms of getting that pension fund investment coming into the sector.
Back on that regulation, I suppose it's not the intent that's in question, it's the speed, which everyone has talked about. The CEO of the FCA has said they're moving really fast to cut red tape in the city, but how do you, that needs to be done now. That needed to be done years ago. In a in a 5-year term, how much progress can you make when it comes to regulation, given that you're already 9 months in?
So look, as a civil servant, I've been here through many different governments. This government has started fast. I thought the Chancellor's Mansion House speech, whenever it was, October or November, where she said that there is too much regulating for risk and not enough regulating for growth. She set out her stall early, and all the actions I've talked about are tangible things that the government has already done. The regulators are working very closely with us. The Chancellor has just reappointed Nikhil Rathi for his second term as CEO of the FCA, and Nikhil was out, this weekend, setting out his stall for the changes that they are going to make and the need for speed. So, look, I am totally confident that this government is gripping this. It is going at pace, and 5 years is plenty of time to deliver all this exciting change.
Well, 4 years. But last final question, also mentioned today, is that we need a government with risk appetite. Is this a government with risk appetite, do you think?
Well, I think if you listen to what the Chancellor has said already and the Prime Minister has said, you can hear that very, very clearly. They have set about change. They are clear that there is too much risk aversion that is gone through the whole system, including the whole regulatory system. And I know from experience of being the Director General of Financial Services at the Treasury, like, the heat is on. So definitely they are absolutely focused on risk.
All right, Gwyneth, thank you so much for coming in. Lovely to speak to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.